John, if you want to be a member and get that taken care of. And now we're coming to the nitty-gritty of this meeting, and I'm so glad all 4 mayoral candidates are here with us or on Zoom with us. Welcome to you 4 people that are running for Quincy mayor. Brennan Hills and Nora Baldner are running on the Democrat ticket, and Mike Trope and Paul Havermel are running on the Republican ticket. They have stepped up to the plate and running for office. We have not. Whether we agree or disagree with them does not matter. They deserve our attention and our respect because they stepped up to the plate. Simple as that. Please listen to them, then do some more research if you're not clear, so that you can vote in an informed way if you haven't already voted. Because that is exactly the reason for our meeting tonight. I have sent them 8 questions early last week. If there is time for additional questions, please write them on the index cards that are on the tables and then hand them to one of our Quincy Tea Party board members. That's one of the reasons why we introduced them. They will then decide if we have time at the end, which questions have maybe not been answered yet or whatever, which questions are going to be asked. And the same question will be asked of all 4 candidates. So all 4 candidates will answer whatever questions come from here, okay? So let's keep this civil and let's keep this nice. Here's the first question I sent to everyone, and we'll start with Brennan on that one. And that was, what is your plan to replace businesses that were lost due to the COVID-19 restrictions? Brennan.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you guys tonight. So this question is super unfortunate that we even have to talk about it. Those businesses that did close down, a couple that come to mind were I Do Bridal, The Pier. It's super unfortunate that they even had to close. That's a lack of leadership from the current city government, in my opinion. There were things out there that could have been done and they neglected to do so. Our city has been so reactive instead of proactive on the issue of COVID-19 that when they did react, they didn't even do that properly. I mean, my administration 100% would be proactive on issues like this and other things that could break our economy, to shut businesses down. Things that are super important, they shouldn't react to, they should be proactive on. So how to get new businesses in, we have to get new people in. That's something that we need to focus on, that 35 by 40 plan. That's also a reason why I'm so keen on diversifying our city, is because if we bring new people into our city, then we're going to have more businesses, and the businesses that are here are going to do better because there are going to be more customers. It's common sense. So that's why that's such a big issue for me. Now, specifically on how to get businesses here, we need a new marketing plan in our city because our marketing plan is flawed. It's not working the way it should, obviously. So that's where I'm at with that, is that we need a new marketing plan. We have to get people into our city and we have to become more proactive.
Thank you, Brennan. I forgot to mention that Ronnie Quinn, raise your hand, Ronnie, is our timekeeper, and she will shout out when there's 30 seconds left for the 3 minutes that you have to answer the question, okay? Nora, what's your answer, please?
First of all, thank you everyone for engaging with us in this way. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Meki, for your words at the beginning and your nice welcome to your event tonight. So business attraction and retention is key to economic development. And in a recent conversation that I had with the Chamber of Commerce, I'm happy to report that there's been no report to the Chamber of a business closure exclusively COVID related. Now, Brennan mentioned 2, but perhaps they were not Chamber members, and maybe with at least one of them, there were maybe some other considerations. But that said, we do have businesses that have suffered revenue loss because of fewer customers. In fact, it's still happening today. So people are being cautious until they know they can safely revisit their favorite stores and businesses. But I've also seen new businesses opening or expanding at this time as well. So there is some growth. The city was able to award 2 rounds of pandemic relief funding through grants, and speaking with small business owners, those funds have helped. The 1% food and beverage tax revenues will supplement the promotions and marketing efforts of our businesses. So that is a great plan, and it is going to work. It'll also support the idea that a rising tide lifts all ships. So when we work together and have a clear message, everyone benefits. As mayor, I'll work to make sure economic development initiatives continue.
Thank you. Michael.
Yep, thank you. Let me hold it. Yeah, okay. Just to be clear, I just want to make sure we got the question right. What's your plan to replace businesses that were lost due to COVID-19 restrictions? And I believe that Quincy businesses, small and large, have experienced many issues related to COVID.
Okay. Can we turn it up a little bit, please?
Just want me to hold that. Too loud. Okay, try that. Yes, is this better? Better? Testing, one,
They can
two,
hear back there.
testing.
Can you hear back in the back?
Can you hear in the back? No?
Let me try this. No.
Hello?
So the candidates
Hello?
stand up.
Yeah, Maggie, thank you for having us all here tonight and for such a great audience that we have here. So again, the question, what is your plan to replace businesses that were lost due to the COVID-19 restrictions? And again, I believe that Quincy businesses, both small and large, have experienced many issues related to COVID and the related closures that our state elected leaders made on our local businesses. I believe that these restrictions are being lifted and removed. We need to encourage residents and visitors to go to these businesses and support them. Let's visit these businesses. Let's shop locally to support them. I plan to work with Greta, the Quincy Area Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business District, and other local business groups focused on small businesses to learn of specific issues that they have in mind to assist businesses in this recovery.
I think we can all agree that most of the businesses that were affected drastically by COVID-19 were all affected drastically were small businesses. So I would like to kind of give a little bit of an overview about what I envision doing to help small businesses specifically come back to Quincy and locate or relocate or reopen here. We need to work to maintain a business-friendly environment and all the interactions that businesses have with our city. So that means our licensing process, our permitting process, and interactions with city government. It needs to be customer-oriented and make sure that people feel comfortable coming down to City Hall to get all the services they need to get, whether that be, again, those basic utility services, or we talk about getting permitting and licensing and code enforcement issues. We need to promote the incentive programs that we already have in place, and I'll go over those briefly here in a second. And we need to provide businesses with a good infrastructure and a good, clean city, and all of our infrastructure systems working well and well maintained, because I believe that makes it easier for businesses not only to locate here, but to operate when they know those things are taken care of well. Some of the programs that we need to make sure that we promote to our small business community and to our business community to help them get open and help them locate here is one of them is the Small Business Emergency Loan Program, has been mentioned, but that is kind of more of a retention program than a recruitment tool. We have the Central Business Revolving Loan Program, which I happen to be the chairman of for a number of years. It's a very successful program where it's a low interest loan to acquire property in the Central Business District. It's been very successful. It's a revolving loan, so it doesn't take a lot of tax dollars, which is attractive to me, and I think that's something that's worked very well. We need to make sure we maintain that. We have the rental rehab program in the central business district as well, predominantly. And we've used that over the last few years to encourage rental rehabilitation of maybe an underutilized or unused building. And where that helps business is it gives them some income on their upper floors for residential, but it gives first floor commercial. So there's some of those programs that we want to keep doing and keep leveraging and keep pushing to our community. But as mayor, the big thing is to just go out and be in the community, listen to what everybody needs, try to work with all the entities involved, and make sure we're listening to what people want to see happen.
Thank you. Our second question, we'll start with Nora on that one, is what is the one most difficult issue Quincy faces?
Well, after COVID recovery, the most difficult issue Quincy faces right now is our crumbling infrastructure. It's the most visible and it's the most impactful on all of us and all the taxpayers right now. So roads and sewers and sidewalks, we all know what kind of shape they're in. But the good news, the multi-million-dollar plan that puts about $2 million into each ward, it's a good start. And the deliberate strategy to fix what's underneath the streets is also a good plan, and it is a smart plan. But I'd like to see that modified just a little bit, where we look at the worst streets first instead of going ward by ward. So perhaps if one ward doesn't need the full amount, it can roll over to another ward to help with projects there. And perhaps that has happened in the past and it's already happening, but it seems like it's not. It seems like there are roads that are repaved that are smooth and they're fine. Cul-de-sacs are being repaved instead of paying attention to the roads that we need to pay attention to the most. So also better communication, again, with the roads plan. When I'm out walking, this is the first thing people say. They say, fix the roads, fix the roads. Well, if they had an idea of when the roads were going to get fixed, what was the progress report on those roads, on the infrastructure plan? And I know infrastructure is more than just roads, but that's the most visible and tangible for people to talk about. So, I'd like to see a plan that tells people when everything is going to be finished and when the next project's going to start. And I do that in a way that the message reaches everyone in all distribution platforms.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you. I think the first thing we have to do is open up all businesses. The shutdown, the rolling shutdown, everybody's tired of it. It hasn't helped anybody locally. And we've got to get everybody back open and operate and let the business owners operate their businesses. To me, the single most difficult issue facing Quincy is the current shortage of qualified skilled workers. This past November, there was a virtual job fair of industry here in town, medical community, the industry, the unions, and also when you include trucking and their needs, all these companies had 355 job openings, full-time, permanent jobs with benefits available today. Okay, think about that, 355 jobs. That's equivalent to at least 2 new big businesses coming to town. Okay, it's huge. Okay, we have the facilities, we have the employers, they have the systems in place. The best of all, they've got work. We need to help recruit people to come to this area that have those skills, that are going to become our neighbors, our coworkers, our friends, to live and thrive in this community.
I think the biggest issue that we have that's a long-term issue as a city of Quincy, especially on the financial side, is our police and fire pension obligations. This has been kind of the elephant in the room, more pronounced since 2011 when the state changed to a tier 2 system, or added another tier to the system. The problem is most of the time when you go to a tiered system, you get reduced costs. Unfortunately, this created, because of changes in benefits, some additional costs, and is getting, quite frankly, has been running rampant and been very difficult to get a handle on. One of the things that I was very, I guess, proud of or pleased to be a part of as when I was on council and committee, finance committee, is that we started identifying this very shortly after Mayor Moore took office. And working with the administration and working with the committees, we came up with a number of ways that we could try to put more money to that as often as we could without raising property taxes to an unbearable level. Because property taxes are what pays for these pensions. And it is an obligation. It's a promise we've made. So we got to figure this out. So one of the things we looked at, and again, I don't remember if I made the motion or was I certainly on the committee. We had some green energy savings and program that we put in place that brings in about $500,000 a year. Other than $70,000 of that, which goes to pay for energy costs in some facilities, that goes directly to pensions. We also have the, people think gaming has been a windfall for the city, but it really, we're using all of that. The Class I license, which is the higher price license, the revenue for the terminal fees and for the revenue itself goes directly to pension costs. As well, a number of times we've taken over the suggested reserve amount, which is 10% of our general fund budget, we've taken some of those additional reserve dollars and put those towards pensions when we've been able to get that done. One time we did, I believe it was 2015-16, 1.1 million we added, again, to try and soften the blow on property tax as much as we could. One other area that's kind of interesting is the very last action I took on council was to make a motion to take some unused police and fire budget dollars and put those directly to pension. So that was I was very glad to do that. The big thing we need to remember is that we need to start addressing this issue now. We've addressed it as best we can in the last few years and the last few councils, but it's not going to go away. The state's done some things, but we don't know the results of that yet. And the big thing we need to do is keep lobbying our state and lobbying, using our connections with Illinois Municipal League to keep lobbying the state to change the structure and work on it locally.
Okay, Brennan, your answer, please.
Thank you for the question, by the way. So the most difficult, and we can argue if this is the most important thing, but the most difficult thing I see our city facing right now is lack of people in our city and people coming into our city. That issue goes to so many other different issues. And if we solve that issue, a lot of other things are going to be solved, such as diversity issues, such as businesses that are struggling, because there were businesses that stayed open regardless of what the state recommended. And there are businesses that are opening now. And there were businesses before this pandemic even started that were not thriving, as a lot of people like to say. Listen, the city government has said it's worked for small businesses forever, and that has never really been true. If it was true, these issues wouldn't be as bad as they are. So getting people into this city is super important. And a couple of ways that we can do that are partnerships with the colleges are going to be super important in our town, because like Mike talked about, there is a lack of skilled workers, but these students are earning degrees that could be used to fill these positions. And a lot of them are unfortunately not staying in this city. Why? It's obvious. We are not where we should be. So we need to move our city forward so that people who are here want to stay here, and so that people who are not here want to come here. Having people in this city, I see, is the most difficult issue because so many people want to fight it. Diversity issues, the reason that that's such a problem is the mindsets that people have in our city of, well, it's improved over the last 20 years. Yeah, I would hope, but that doesn't mean it's where it should be. That doesn't mean it's anywhere close to where it should be. We have a couple people of color in positions of firefighters or police officers, doctors, but just because we have a couple here and there does not mean our diversity issues are not very prominent in our city. We have to get people here, and we have to get them to want to stay here. It's the most difficult issue we have.
Thank you, Brennan. The next question, and we'll start with Mike on this. What are your top 2 or 3 issues for Quincy?
Thank you. My top 3 issues for Quincy are: first, infrastructure. We must improve and maintain our roads, alleys, sewers, water, safe water for the community. This year, 2021 should be the single largest investment in infrastructure improvements in over a decade. We got to find a way to continue that level or very close to it going forward without having a tax increase. The second is jobs, which I talked about earlier tonight. We've got to work to bring skilled labor into this community. It's an economic development tool. It's one of the metrics that businesses, when they're looking to come to an area, they look to see, do you have an adequate supply of workers that we need to be able to hire from? Today, we don't. We aren't even supporting our existing businesses. We've got to reverse that trend. We've got to do things different than we've done for the last 100 years. We can't grow our own. We're going to have to recruit. The third is our public safety. Under an administration as mayor, Quincy will remain a safe place to live, work, enjoy life. That includes having proper police. You want to protest, let's have a protest. But if you cross the line, turn into a riot, you're going to get arrested. We're going to keep a peaceful community. And we have to maintain the firefighters to make sure that they're going to protect our assets. So those are my 3 top issues.
The 3 top issues that I would identify, infrastructure is always a main issue because that's near and dear to everybody's heart. Infrastructure being our streets, sidewalks, our water distribution system, and our waste sewer systems. We have done a very large bond issue recently. It was interesting how the bond was structured. That I was glad to be part of a council that allowed the bond to be structured the way it was with work that we had done as far as changing how we fund the underground work. We fund it now out of the 501 and 502 water and sewer funds. That is what that can be used for. So it's more transparent. It allows us to use our capital dollars a little bit differently and stretch those capital dollars above the street out a little bit. Another issue that, as we mentioned before, as far as a financial issue, will be the police and fire pension funding. We have to get that worked out to keep that promise that we made. And then one of the most important things that we do, because it does set up our city as a safe and place that people want to be. People feel good about being here. They want to make sure they locate here. They want to make sure they do live and work here, and that's public safety. We need to make sure that we treat public safety as a priority. They're our 2 largest budgets in our general fund, but we need to make sure that we don't, take the easy route every time a budget gets some stress on it and cut those services. I will be honest with you. There was one budget that I did vote for that closed the fire station. We also made a promise that if we had the revenue in that year to open that back up, or as soon as we could, we would open it back up. And I'm proud to say, with the help of Alderman Tom Ernst and myself, we got that open. We kept that promise. And I'm proud to say that we did that. And I think sometimes your evolution as a member of city government, you look at those big budgets up front and you say, well, if we cut, that's going to be the easy place to cut because they got more money to cut. But then as you evolve through there and you realize what public safety means to our city and means to the people that we are charged to protect, it becomes a big priority. And that was my evolution on the council. The last few years, I'm proud to say I supported public safety very well. And I think that's what we need to do. So it'll always be a priority in my administration, as will infrastructure, and we'll get a handle on those pension obligations as soon as we can.
Thank you, Brennan.
Thank you for the question. So like it's been talked about by both other candidates, infrastructure is one of the most important things that we have to focus on in an administration. It's such a basic thing. That's what city government is supposed to do, like at the most basic level, is keep our streets looking nice. And it's not just about streets, it's about our water systems, which I always like to bring up that Virginia Tech report that was put out that's talked about the Legionnaire's disease and how our city stopped putting anti-corrosion agent in the water for a number of months. That I don't know why that happened. I don't know who approved that, but it needs looked into. But yeah, streets are super important as well, because when people come to our city and see that the most basic things are not being taken care of in the way they should, again, there's no, that's an immediate turnoff of why they would want to stay here. A second issue is, like I talked about, a difficult one is getting people to stay here or to come here, period. Another issue regarding that I would like to talk about is getting people to stay here through making housing more affordable. Now, I had a live Q&A last night on Facebook where I explained in a little bit more detail the differences between affordable housing, which we technically have in Illinois and Quincy, and socially equitable housing, which we do not have. I've not heard another candidate talk about this still, and it is an issue that needs talked about, because to live in affordable housing in the city, I actually looked at these numbers. Affordable housing is you need to make $53,000 a year based on a 30-year loan with a 10% down payment. The minimum wage right now being, I believe, $11, doubled. If you work 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, not taking a single week off, if you double the current minimum wage, you're still $10,000 off from making what it would cost to live in affordable housing. If that's not an issue, I don't know what is, and no one else will talk about it. So a third thing is going to be transparency and communication through our government. We have improved that.
30 seconds, Brennan. 30 seconds.
We have improved that, I will say. There's some good movement going into our website and how we get some information out, but it's not where it should be. We need to take into consideration what our constituents feel is the most important rather than what we feel is the most important. And I don't see that really being done as much as it should be. So those are the three issues that are really important to me.
Thank you. Nora?
It was difficult to knock it down to just three. I have about 10 issues that I feel are important to Quincy. My three include pandemic recovery first. We're not out of the woods yet, as much as we would really want to be. We simply aren't. So healthcare comes first. Thanking our healthcare providers. They've supported us and they've watched us through this crisis, and we owe them a great of gratitude. And for the vaccine distribution, you know, we've had great operation going on, and I think we need to make sure that that continues. I'm very proud of Adams County for reaching out to other counties, surrounding counties, to offer that service as well. We also need to support our schools and our businesses with safety protocols and making sure they have the equipment and the wherewithal to follow those protocols. Fighting for Quincy's fair share of state and federal relief funds is going to bring a lot of money into this community. So that's something that I would absolutely start first off, right, first day in the job. Also making sure our most vulnerable populations have access to that care and to those prevention protocols. So as much as we'd like to be on our way out of this, we still have some work to do there. Second, a ready workforce. There are parallel goals there as well. Attracting and training a workforce to fill the jobs that sit vacant now, and we know that's all happening, but then also laying the groundwork for business attraction to offer a variety of family supporting jobs. So the jobs we need to attract are the ones with living wages, good benefits, and security and safety in mind, and retirement income as well. My third issue for Quincy involves riverfront development. This is critical, and it's critical that a community deal to its strengths. It's our greatest asset right now that has the largest potential for exponential return on investment. We've been handed what most communities can only dream about, and we need to capitalize on that. So my top three: pandemic recovery, a ready workforce, and riverfront development.
Thank you. Paul, what are you going to do to get big manufacturing to Quincy?
We've talked about this a number of times, and I think the biggest thing that we can do is continue to work with our economic development partners, try to make sure that we're recruiting businesses to come here, let them know that they're welcome, we want them here. We'll try to make sure that we have an infrastructure that supports that. We'll have a city that's supporting you as far as permitting, code enforcement, building requirements and all that, but we want to make sure that we do that without imposing additional off-the-wall mandates on people, such as, we're going to cut your utilities off or something like that if you don't wear a mask or whatever. But anyway, the thing that we can do to help recruit people here is to make sure that we, again, keep that infrastructure improvement, make a city look nice, make our infrastructure work, have stress the quality of life when we're trying to recruit somebody here. We have an amazing, for the size of our city, we have an amazing array of what I like to call quality of life opportunities. We have museums, we have a great park system. As others have mentioned, we're a medical hub with a lot of specialties that are available. We are definitely a place that I think is attractive to business because of where we're located. We just got to get the word out. And as mayor, what I'll specifically do is I will meet with anybody that wants to come here, anybody that even thinks of coming here. I will go out and meet and talk and try to sell Quincy every day. That's what I do for a living, and sell. And I would be more than happy. And I look forward to going out and being an ambassador for Quincy and getting people to come here and getting big business to come.
Brennan.
Thank you for the question. So this question is a little bit difficult for me. And the reason why is because I'm not sure how much we should be talking about bringing new large businesses into this city when we've already talked so much about how we're struggling to sustain the ones we do have. I think it's much more critical to talk about bringing new people into the city, like I've said, rather than talk about bringing new businesses that might not even be able to sustain themselves or are going to suck jobs away from other businesses that are already in this city. So again, getting skilled workers or people who have those degrees to stay in this city is vital. Getting new people into the city with that 35 by 40 program, marketing programs, those are all super important things that we need to do before we can really have the conversation about bringing new businesses that, again, may not be able to even sustain themselves or are only going to be able to do so through sucking jobs away from other businesses that are already here. If we do get to a point in my administration where that's something feasible, then absolutely we have to change our marketing to get businesses to want to come here. And we have to be approachable and friendly when they are thinking about coming here. Like Paul did say, it's vital that whoever is in the seat of the mayor is able to talk to people in a way that is friendly. So yeah, again, we have to focus more on sustaining the businesses that we already have and getting people to come into our city before we can have really the conversation about what to do to bring new big businesses here.
Thank you. Nora.
We absolutely must focus on retention and support before recruitment. If our largest facility obviously can't hire enough workers, how could another major manufacturer operate? So maybe if we just took one word out of the question and changed it to what are you going to do to get manufacturing to Quincy, that might help solve a little bit of a problem too. Working with Great River Economic Development Foundation is key in that process. And perhaps we can scale down our expectations a little bit in order to rework the idea that if we just attracted this large manufacturer, that all of our economic development, housing, workforce, blight issues, everything would be solved. So it's been a panacea for a long time. We have been talking about this for years and years and years. And Greta itself has even turned to retention over recruitment. But perhaps there's a solution maybe partnering labor and manufacturing and government together to reach a larger employee base in Illinois and in this region, even across the country. We also need to examine how we're supporting the families that do move here from other areas for those manufacturing jobs. How are we on our housing inventory? How quickly can our population grow and sustain the services that the city provides to them? So we need to be able to recognize what the impact of that would be. And I'd also like to know what the real barrier is to filling those jobs. We haven't addressed that yet. Why can't we get people to take good jobs with good benefits as was sat on the table? So I think there's a lot of collaborative work to be done here, but again, I would take the word big manufacturing out, and then I think we can have an open conversation.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to hear all the candidates finally come together and agree that recruiting skilled workers to town is critical. I'm glad after a couple of debates, we're finally getting everybody to build consensus around that. Quincy has always opened their arms to welcome a new business into our community. Under my administration, we're going to continue to do that. The issue is we've got to be ready for them. And we fell back because of COVID, because of the businesses that we do have pre-COVID hit new sales level for like the second and third year in a row for at least our top industries. Our medical community is growing like gangbusters, and it's continuing to grow at the fastest rate of any business locally. We just don't have that labor force growing as fast. So that's got to be the key. But whatever business wants to come to town, we have to work with and we're going to follow up with them. We're going to provide them any economic tools, incentives that are affordable and that they qualify for to make them comfortable to get established in Quincy. And I'll see that they do that.
Thank you all. I want to remind everybody here that if you have any questions that you want to ask all four, please write them down and get them to Jason McCoy. Jason, raise your hand right there. We've got 4 more questions for everybody. Brennan, what is your plan for Quincy's infrastructure?
Thank you for the question. So again, like I said earlier about our infrastructure, this is perhaps the most basic function of a city government is infrastructure, roadways, alleyways, sewage. It's so basic and yet so struggling for some reason. And that needs to stop immediately. That needs taken care of and probably should have been taken care of a long time ago. Listen, I went and visited some cities this summer. We went on a trip and I went to about 4 different cities, most of them around the same size as Quincy. And the very first thing I noticed was, wow, I'm not dodging potholes. The alleyways were nice. The most basic things need to be nice. So that's the first part of it is, why is it even like this? Why were the people in city government letting it get to this point? And that's not only roads, but again, I want to bring up that Virginia Tech report that talked about the possibility that the Legionnaire's disease that killed over 20 people might have happened because our city stopped putting anti-corrosion agent and I believe chlorine in our water for a number of months. If that is the case, somebody is responsible and somebody needs held responsible. People died. The infrastructure is also going to get people to come into our city. I do agree that we need to focus on the roads that are struggling the most rather than places that are not, such as the cul-de-sacs and things. There are obvious spots that people drive on every single day and lots of people drive on every day that just are not being addressed in the way that they should be. So I would change how we focus on that. I will agree with Paul that I am very happy in the way that we've changed how we fund that. And allowed the capital funds to stretch out a little further with taking some of those funds from the sewage funding. So I am very happy about that, and that needs to continue 100%.
Thank you. Nora?
The multi-million-dollar infrastructure plan adopted in 2019 was several years overdue. And when something is that overdue, it does take time to show any progress. So one element of the road projects, the way they're funded, is that distribution of money towards. Again, I talked about that earlier. I'd like to see the money go to where it's most needed first, and fixing the most traveled roads and the substructure again. And I'd like to see that progress report, a public tracker, if you will, of what projects are being completed when the next one is due. Yes, we did have that water scare in Quincy. Legionnaire's disease at the vet's home and in our city limits showed us how delicate our water delivery system is. And even though everyone keeps talking about those potholes, we need to focus on our water quality and delivery system. The pipes are old, they're in bad shape. No one broke them, no one tried to do that. They're aging out, our system is aging out. And so that is going to need our attention sooner rather than later. And I do think that we're in our pandemic relief money that we can bring back to Quincy. I think we can use some of that to help with our infrastructure and help with other projects, even though that's going to be a couple of months down the road. I think it is coming, and I think we need to capitalize on that and take advantage of that.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. Infrastructure, again, is one of my top three issues that I'm going to address as mayor. This community is well over 100 years. The population and the property west of 12th Street is the oldest part of our community. So, we have pipes that are 100 years old. It wasn't too long ago, we used to have wooden pipes. My understanding is those have all been replaced, okay? But we're an old community, and the infrastructure has been ignored. We have to continue to find the dollars from other sources, whatever source we have. I think the current administration has done a remarkable job with this bonding that they've done, and they need to be commended with the council for pulling that in place, because before that, we were struggling just to keep up with the basic surfacing. I also think it's important how Jeffrey Conte has come up with a plan and really has implemented it. Instead of just redoing the surface so we feel good that we've got a nice smooth surface, we're doing fewer blocks in a year, but we're doing everything. We're going in the ground, getting the water, the sewer, redoing curbs, putting the asphalt on. Now, unfortunately, Main Street between 24th and 30th is not the best example, okay? No, I don't think anybody here appreciates waiting through the winter to get that top level surface. But when you're trying to do so many projects and each alderman has their ward funds that they want to allocate, it does create issues as to limited money, and we have to make decisions. I personally would prefer completing the project. Maybe we do a block less, but we bring it up when we leave that time with a full paved street, come back the following year, do the other block that we couldn't get to. So we've got to learn by some of those experiences. Funding is going to be key. We have to find other funds to do this. And I think on the national level and the state level, talking about infrastructure build out, we should have access to some available dollars through that. And I know Quincy will be ready for shovel-ready projects to handle that.
Well, I think to address our infrastructure needs, my administration will continue the 5-year capital plan, the 5-year look ahead to see where we're at. And I would like to mention one thing on when we're talking about ward funds, that's built into the prioritization that comes from the engineering department. So those aren't that get leapfrogged over anything else. Those are part of that. It's just getting additional input from the aldermen so they can do projects in their ward. When we're looking at that 5-year capital plan, we have to make sure we update that every year, which we do, and that we're always looking 5 years out, so we never lose that look. Again, as we talked before, when we did the bond issue recently, most of that bond, I think 16 million or so, maybe a little bit more, was from the bond itself that's paid for from retiring debt. Additional parts of the bond were paid from those 501 and 502 funds that we talked about. And that was changed just in the Moore administration. I fully supported that. I think it was a great move, again, for the reasons that we've already talked about. But frankly, those capital dollars, we've spent a little more, but on the actual capital projects, the above ground projects, but we actually just moved that from what we were spending on the ground before. So, but it's nice to have those additional funds available. As far as what we need to do, we need to look when this bond is retired, which is quite a ways down the road, our other debt comes off of our property tax bill. We need to consider doing another bond. Again, we've seen the results of that. I think that City Council and the administration did a great job. It's helping us catch up when we can catch up. And so as we can do that in a few years or even sooner, as we have other debt retiring without raising property taxes, I'm all for that. So take all those things together is how I'm going to approach infrastructure. One thing we need to remember too is that some of our maintenance funds come from our federal dollars, which is FAU, and some of it comes from state, which is motor fuel tax. Well, we've seen a reduction in motor fuel tax. So we're going to have to be aware of how that affects us moving forward on maintenance, because it can only be used for maintenance. So, like I said, hopefully when COVID's over and things get opened back up and people are traveling more, those motor fuel tax dollars come back up, and we can still spend the same dollars or more on maintenance that comes from another source. Thank you.
Thank you all. Nora, do you support the Quincy Riverfront plans? How are you going to pay for that? And how will that benefit Quincy in the short and in the long run?
I absolutely support the plans that are ongoing right now. So the state of Illinois is moving our Memorial Bridge, and the announcement of that project spurred the current strategic plan called Quincy Next. And in that plan is a study of options for the riverfront. So there's absolutely state and federal money available for that kind of development, but it's not available without a plan. So I support taking the first step in the development of that plan. And much like the council just recently approved the study to see if a business enterprise zone would benefit Quincy at the Quincy Mall location, the study to look at what can be done along the riverfront will pay for itself. At last night's city council meeting, Holly Kane said that for every $1 spent marketing Quincy, $8 comes back as revenue. And she presented the new marketing plan for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. The return on the investment for the riverfront would also be exponential. We have an area that other cities would give their eye tooth for. If you've been to Grafton, if you've been to Hannibal, seeing what they're doing to their riverfront there, we're missing the boat, pun intended, if we don't bring vibrancy and development to our riverfront. It'll happen in phases, so just like the Klingner Trail did, development will also bring construction jobs and our target residential market to Quincy. Riverfront development is absolutely an investment in our future. So there's a variety of different ways to pay for it, and private enterprise is the key to making this happen. In the short run, so it'll benefit Quincy by providing jobs, much needed jobs in construction and development. And then in the long run, it will be a source of income for us and pride and tourism and tradition. So we fully support the Quincy Riverfront plans. It's fun to dream about what the riverfront could look like. And I think everyone is excited about moving that forward.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. Overall, I do support the riverfront development. We have a broad-based committee that has been studying that for quite some time. And just like the generations before that studied it when we had the stockyards down by the river and the 10 boat sheds, and they came up with a plan. And from Hampshire north, we have what we have now. It's a prettier site. This riverfront plan has a lot of other good ideas and sections as to how we can build it out. My concern is to do that, we cannot rely solely on government funding. I'd rather put money into infrastructure than that has to replace and upgrade what we have today throughout the city. This type of a plan, the city has invested some money, the county's invested money, and the park district is investing money. It's now time to bring in a private partner that will be there to take on the next part of the project. This all ties with the new bridge that we're going to have by bringing the traffic east into Quincy. And I think it's critical that we have a plan to be able to show it and tap into the other dollars that will be available there. But we have to have a private partner.
Thank you, Paul.
As I've said from the beginning of this campaign, the riverfront plan is great. I did vote to fund the strategic plan that led to this, but I have to say that in order to move forward, we have to have private investment on the front end. We've seen this before, where we talk about, well, if you build it, they will come. And that was a little project called Hydro. The same thought process was in there that, well, we'll build it, then we'll maybe get a private partner. The return on investment ended up being 50 years out on that. And by the time it was over, we had a $6 million bill that really brought us nothing. It's not fear, but it's being cautious on the riverfront. I see the value of it. But again, we have to have that private investment to reduce that return on investment time frame, or it's not a good investment for the taxpayer. You would not invest your own money in an investment that takes 50 years or 20 years to see a return. That's what we're talking about doing here. So if we get that private investment, we leverage non-local tax dollars, which is still our money, but coming back. But the big thing is a private investment to get this built and get it moving. If that happens, that's great, and I'm all for that. But other than that, to make this a project that we leapfrog over our other core services or our other needs, to me is not right. We have to have a priority ladder, and this needs to be built into that priority ladder just like anything else we do. We shouldn't treat it as a special thing. We should treat it as another warranted, perhaps, service or project that we want to do, but it needs to be built into everything we do. That's my thought.
Thank you.
Brennan?
Thank you for the question. I did talk a little bit about how the communication between the city and the people in it have been lacking. Now, however, with this particular program, I think this is where they've done phenomenal. The outreach and the input that has been put in by other members of the community rather than just the people in City Hall is great. Could it be improved a little bit? Yeah, but overall, this is where we've done well in that respect. So to the question of, do I support it? Yes, I do support riverfront development. It works. In other cities, Grafton, Hannibal, like Nora said, it does work. There's no question about that. The question for me is when to do this. Right now, I do agree with Paul a little bit that the government can't solely fund this. We don't have the funds that we normally do because of the pandemic. There are going to, frankly, need to be cuts made. And this is definitely one of those things that I would look at. Should we start another large project before taking care of all the basic things that need done in our city? That does need to go on a tier ladder. In the short term, yes, this would bring some great jobs to our city, a flood of people to come here, and possibly stay here if we can find other jobs for those people. And in the long term, it would create a sort of tradition for our city with yearly festivals we can do. New businesses means new jobs, more people, diversity. All of these things are great. So it's not a question of, do we do this? Yeah, 100%. It works. It's a question for me of, when do we do this?
Thank you, Brennan. Next question is for Mike. What do you consider a legitimate trigger to spend rainy day funds?
Thank you. Rainy day funds, that's a relatively new account in the city. It's approximately $3.6 million, which is, roughly 10% of the general fund. So I think it's a good step. To me, the triggers would be some severe event that was not budgeted, could be a storm, flooding, snow, ice, damaging trees, could be an earthquake, could be a tornado that comes through, could be a significant infrastructure failure. So, and Quincy had part of all of those things in the past. We're lucky they don't happen on an annual basis, but the rainy day fund, I think, is prudent to maintain to help in those times of need.
Thank you, Paul.
The parameters for the unrestricted reserve or rainy day funds, as we're calling them tonight, was set up by a sustainability committee that I served on. We codified that a few years ago. We try to keep 10% of our general fund into the reserve, and that's of the subsequent year's budget. And it can only be spent in the current fiscal year. And we can spend it on very specific things as codified there, and I agree with these. It could be a unexpected decline in budget revenues, a natural disaster or unforeseen expenses, or to defer the cost of borrowing. It does require a 2/3 vote of the council, which I completely agree with. We got to make it difficult to spend those rainy day funds. And it requires a plan to replenish them if they're spent. And that all of that was fleshed out during the sustainability committee. We talked about it at length. And that's one of the things we did get past council on the sustainability committee. If the reserve gets over 10%, and we have excess funds in there, we can be used to reduce debt or liabilities. We can use that we actually used it to pay pension a few times. Again, I mentioned that when we talked about pension before. And we could use it on infrastructure, basically any other expense that we get the 2/3 vote on. It does require a supplemental budget ordinance, and again, that 2/3 vote. So I think it's pretty well codified now. Again, that's a relatively new thing. It was not really, it was always a 2/3 vote, but it was never really, this is what you can spend it on. And I think that by doing that, it makes the city council and the city administration and all of us involved in city government much more disciplined. We know we don't have that there for some things if we get into trouble. So we need to make sure that we budget wisely. And I think for the most part, we're doing a fairly good job of that.
Brennan.
Thank you for the question. So something immediately that pops to mind is a pandemic. Support for people who are trying to follow protocol. I think that's a good rainy day fund usage. Additionally, with the pandemic, loss of revenue that we are going to have 100%, rainy day funds would be good to use for that loss of revenue. Of course, the everyday, not the everyday, thank God, things like disasters. Natural disasters are just kind of things that happen, especially in the Midwest with the winds we have and the weather we have. So I think it's super good that we have those funds there to help out with those things. Another thing that could be considered, and of course would have to go through a 2/3 vote for the council, is if there is something that undoubtedly will bring new short and long-term revenue to the city. That's a possibility of using rainy day funds to fund something like that.
Thank you, Brennan. Nora?
So the legitimate trigger is passage of a supplemental budget ordinance, and that does take 2/3 majority vote of the city council. So the trigger to spend money is actually council action. A reason to spend money from the cash reserve fund, that's also spelled out in city code to supplement a significant decline in revenues for expenses related to a natural disaster or unforeseen expense, or to defer the cost of borrowing. So we need to look for other pandemic relief bills or other federal government or other state monies or grants. We could look at more grants for the city, for municipalities before we dig into that cash reserve fund. That ordinance passed in 2018 spells out how much goes in and how much comes out and what that cash reserve can be used for. So the bottom line for the city is the cash reserve fund should be reserved for satisfying the work of city government for the taxpayers. All other options should be exhausted before the council should try and change the budget.
Thank you. Paul, no, I'm sorry, Mike. Did you answer that, Mike?
Yeah, I
No.
did.
Oh, yeah.
First.
Oh, we went that way. Right. Sorry, I'm getting old. Paul, I am old. Which is the great national, I'm sorry. With the great national political divide, what are you willing to do to reach across the aisle and work with the other side?
Nothing gets done in city government if we vote and work along party lines 100%. Every time you have an issue as an alderman that comes up or an issue in the city, other than a few years ago, there's not one party that can get things passed or not passed. So that doesn't really happen on city council much. It did happen one time, though, I have to say, to one of our hosts tonight, and I was very disappointed when I was denied the right to speak one time along a straight party line vote, which was very disappointing. And luckily, we were able to get that reversed and taken care of. But as far as where we go with working across lines, that just means working with everybody, talking, engaging people, making sure that we treat people with respect. We've done that a lot. I've done that on occasion. We had to work with the Adams County Board, which is a bipartisan board as well, to get the jail to stay downtown and to get the Quincy Police Department co-located law enforcement building. I was fortunate enough to be on the negotiating team for both of those issues. I was very, very happy we got that worked out with bipartisan support from the council. Basically, though, at some point in time, your ideology does define you at some point. Who you support at a higher level might define you. And like I said, when it comes down to the basics, the first president I ever voted for, ever worked for was Ronald Reagan. Still one of my heroes. And we can talk about being bipartisan at the local level, and we will be. And we can talk about working with upper levels of government and working in a bipartisan way with our state legislators, if they ever are become the other side, or our governor, or all of those issues. But basically, it all comes down to everybody just needs to work with everybody and try to do the best job we can to present our case, present what we want for Quincy, and sell ourselves and sell Quincy to whatever help we're asking for at any level.
Thank you. Brennan?
Thank you for the question. Part of that question, though, does bother me a little bit when we say the other side. There is no other side. We are all in this together. We all want what's best for the city, whether or not we agree on how to do that. We all do genuinely want what's best for this city. So when people do have other ideas, we have to be willing to make compromises and reach across the aisle while continuing to push ideas that we do think will help people the most. I, again, also don't see this as a huge issue so far in city government, which I'm very glad about. At the local level, what I've seen primarily is that people just want to help. How they're doing that, I might not agree with, but I do see the want to help people. One thing that this does spark is the question of should we have nonpartisan elections, which I am in favor of, particularly because of this divide that we have at the national level. Because ideas that we have at the local level and the party that we may run under don't maybe align with the ideas that are at the national level. So I'm in favor of nonpartisan elections because it allows us to keep an open mind. And not only that, but allows people who may not feel comfortable choosing a party allegiance to come forward and be part of the community and be part of the people who want to help. I do disagree that the ideology we have at the national level does define us. That's not what it's about at the local level. It's, again, just about wanting to help people. I'm not going to do something because my national party says it's what's best. I'm going to do something because I listen to the people in the community and know what is best based on those responses. So I don't see this as a huge issue within city government right now. I hope it continues to stay that way. And I think we all just need to work together.
Thank you. Nora?
One way to reach across the aisle is to get rid of the aisle. I support nonpartisan city government. The voters of Quincy deserve to decide what kind of government they want. The one with sides or the one where everyone is working for Quincy and does have the taxpayers' best interest top of mind. I live in a dual political party household. However, my husband and I agree on more things than we disagree. Moving forward is about respectful conversations. It's about facts on the table, and it's about having a common goal. We have a common goal, and that is watching out for the taxpayer, every hardworking taxpayer. At the end of every committee meeting, proposal, or plan, the question in my administration will be, how does this affect each and every resident and taxpayer of Quincy, from our most vulnerable to our most successful? I'd also like to propose a new idea. I'd like to have a social media free zone at City Hall. The Southside Plaza could be a place for real human interaction, a place of conversation and face-to-face discussion with no social media allowed. I've been reaching across the aisle for a very long time. Let's get rid of it.
Thank you, Nora. Mike?
You know, Nora, I've got to tell you, having a social free zone during the campaign, I would more than welcome. You know, for this national political divide, I think it comes down to communications. We have to be willing to meet with people that we have common beliefs and interests, and we have to also have meetings and dialogue with people that have a different view. And the way to do that, you've got to have meetings, you have discussions, you've got to have open and treat each other civilly. Okay, there's got to be a certain amount of respect, no matter what the issue is. And let's talk through the issues, because no one person has all the great ideas. Okay, but by working with the group, working with other elected positions. So as mayor, nothing gets done from a city standpoint that's going to cost money without the majority of the city council approving it. Okay, that's the fact of life. Well, you have to have the ability to express what the goals and issues are, work on the common good. That's where I would like to start off as mayor, to meet with each of the aldermen and find out what their priorities are for their ward, what their priorities are for the city of Quincy. We compare that with one another and with my plans, and then try to see, okay, which ones can we start working on today? And then we'll put these for next month or next quarter and keep going. Same issue on the state level. So, you know, we have to work with the state, we have to work with the county, we have to work with the park district, we work with other non-governmental groups in the community and elsewhere. If it's a new business coming to town, it comes down to communications.
Thank you. We have a little bit more time. I said we're going to get out of here at 8 o'clock at the latest, and I've received several questions, so let's see how many of them we can get. Brennan, you're up first, so listen. Are you committed to being a full-time mayor for Quincy and working for the people, as well as keeping an open door policy towards the citizens of Quincy?
I actually love that question, because as far as I know, I'm actually the only candidate who has committed 100% to having an open door policy. Not only that, but keeping my phone number public so that individuals can call me if they need help. So I think that's very, very important. I will be a full-time mayor. I'm actually committed to this job 100%. That's another reason why I have talked about, and I do think, again, I am the only candidate who has talked about the fact that I will cut my own budget or my own salary by 25% because the current mayor, I do believe, makes too much, in my opinion. It's not about that for me at all. It's about working for you guys.
Thank you. Nora?
Yes, absolutely, full-time and open door policy, except, if there are private conversations going on, sometimes you need to actually shut that door. But in the spirit of an open door policy, absolutely. And in fact, I would bring back frequent and regular press conferences and town halls as when we can. We can do them on Zoom if we need to. But communication is my specialty, and I'd like to bring back that transparency of government to the office of mayor and have open door policy and a lot more accessibility to the public as well. Definitely full-time position.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know, with all the issues that are facing Quincy going forward, I think the question is, what's the definition of full-time? When you're trying to deal with $101 million pension problem that 10 years ago was 50, 20 years ago was 5, it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take creative thinking as how to handle that. So I am absolutely committed to working, 100% full-time to work on the city issues. We've got the infrastructure, we've got union contracts coming up, we've got to find additional funding for our infrastructure, the pension relief. There's so many issues that are going to need that. I agree, if you're not going to do this full time, you ought to walk out of the room now.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a full-time job. I'm committed to that from day one. There's no way that you can do what you need to do as mayor without being probably a lot more than full-time. I think one of the things I would like to do very early on, in fact, one of the first things we'll do, is expand the quarterly meetings that Mayor Moore's had with his lunch with the mayor and things like that. I would like to have a town hall type meeting once a month. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything. We have to limit the number of aldermen there so we don't have an Open Meetings Act violation. But we would definitely want to make sure that we have as many of our staff there as we can to hear what's going on directly from the people. But mainly to talk to the mayor and say, hey, this is where you're doing well. This is what we're hearing. This is what we need. If you can't listen, you can't do this job, period. I did learn that with 16 years of experience as an alderman. Many of my colleagues would say I talked way too much when I was on council, but I do know that I listened a lot more than I talked. And I always felt that I was very responsive and accessible, and I will continue doing that as mayor. As we've talked about before, we'll have all of our numbers posted. There'll be numbers to call after hours that will get to the mayor's office and make sure that we answer calls in a timely manner. As an alderman, my criteria was try to call back every call or email every day. As mayor, I'm assuming we get a few more than an alderman does, so that might be a little bit more difficult, but we're going to do a 24-hour criteria to get every request for information from the mayor back to the person who made the request. So again, full-time, absolutely, if not more, and it will be more.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more. Nora, you're first. Police, fire, streets, and sanitation are often considered the major functions of city government. However, police and fire have grown from 33% of the budget in 1975 to 53% in 2000 to nearly 60% of the operating budget in 2020. How do we provide public safety economically?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, I do know that we had budget cuts. And so the people that we asked to run into burning buildings and to keep us safe have actually had budget cuts and are down a few personnel. So I think, it's going to take some creative looking at the budget. And I think there are efficiencies in City Hall that we haven't realized yet. And I think there are ways to look for different revenue streams. We have a limit on the number of gambling machines in town. So what would it look like if we took the limit off of that? The cannabis tax is bringing in more money than we thought it would. So, the budget is a living being and a living animal. It changes constantly because of adjustments of what's coming in and what's going out. So responsible fiscal management is key there. But I think that we need to support our police and fire departments to their fullest capacity. They keep us safe, and they're a very important part of this community. So, they're good jobs. They have people that when they work those jobs, they could raise a family here. They have benefits, and it's a good job. And I think the city is a responsible employer, and I wouldn't want to change that. So, you have to get creative with the budget and see where you can find efficiencies without cutting police or fire departments.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, to me, again, the law and order, having proper, police protection in the community is critical. So we need to maintain that. I think there's some things that we can do to even make the police and fire more efficient. When I look at some other communities our size and how they've been operating, I don't want to take people, detectives or patrol officers off the street. I think that's critical to maintain a safe community. So I agree, we've got to find the other sources or the other allocations of dollars within the budget to make sure we're maintaining the level of service that our citizens expect and deserve. With that, we do need to evaluate all options. We have to take a look at the efficiencies, not only in the police and fire, but anywhere within the city. As a taxpayer, I don't like paying any more taxes than I have to. I don't even like paying the taxes I have to. Okay, so I want to be clear that when we're taking the taxpayers' dollars, no matter how it comes, if it comes from the sales tax or property tax, that doesn't make a difference to me. What makes a difference when we're spending it, when we're allocating that dollar to a specific item, we've got to make sure we're getting the most use out of that taxpayer dollar than we absolutely could if we put it someplace else. Okay, it's critical. So we've got to not assume that, we got this money that comes in every year. We have to take a look prudently. Is this worth another dollar today? And make decisions for everything we're looking at. So I think that's the advantage, as even though I have 34 years of local government service, by not being involved with day-to-day operations within the city, it gives me a better way of taking a look at the city to see where can we make improvements and changes. When I was on the county board, we cut over $800,000 without affecting services. Okay, I don't know what the number is for the city if we can cut anything. Okay, but you have to get in and find out and make sure we spend taxpayers' money wisely.
Could you repeat the question?
Police, fire, streets, and sanitation are often considered the major functions of city government. Police and fire have grown from 33% of the budget in 75 to 53 in 2000 to nearly 60% of the operating budget in 2020. How do we provide public safety economically?
When we were putting together a sustainability report, we were asked to identify what we consider core or essential services. Police and fire were obviously one of those, and I agree with that, and they will be a priority in my administration. Does that mean that there's a blank check for those services? Of course not. We need to evaluate on a yearly basis about where we're at and about what we're going to do with any department in the city. But in these particular services, they're a little bit different than most because there are professionals and professional parameters that they have to meet or exceed that could have unintended consequences if they don't. We've seen legislation at the state level that puts some of our ability to police, especially, in jeopardy locally. So how is that going to affect the number of police we have or the number of firefighters we have? Talking to both the command staff and the rank and file firefighter groups, which I've done all 4 of those, they're not too concerned about getting too many more people right now. They think they can manage with what they've got today and still do a good job of policing and protecting our city. So we have to remember that buildings and equipment and all that are extremely important, but people, especially the fire department, are what makes it work. So we have to be extremely careful when we change things or when we close a station or when we do this, we do that, because there's unintended consequences. Again, we mentioned Station 6 before. When that was closed, the impetus to get that back open because it drastically increased response times. Happened to be my ward that it was in. I wasn't comfortable with that. So we got that going again. So how we're going to pay for it is basically we make it a priority, we keep it a priority. If we have to adjust those departments or other departments to make that work, we will do that. And we will, there's no sacred cows, but the core services in my administration will be a priority that's funded first every time.
Thank you. Brennan?
Thank whoever that was. Thank you for the question. So what I'm hearing from other candidates and have heard in other cities, it's the same old of we need to look at budget. Yeah, we do. They have around a $14 million budget. That's a lot of money. But we need to change the way that we police. And it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about. And it's something that no one else will talk about, but we do need to change the way we police. And the way that I want to do it will save money. So I would like to create a new program in our city called Cahoots, which acts as a response to nonviolent crimes, mental health issues, drug abuse situations, things that officers don't necessarily need to respond to, they would not respond to. Trained people in those fields would respond to that. So that's going to take away from the police about 15 to 25% of 911 calls would be redirected to this program. Other cities who have done this, there are 3 particular ones that I've been looking at that have similar programs. They're saving about 8% on their police budget, and that's not a little number when we're looking at a $14 million budget. So we have to absolutely change the way we police, and that's not only from creating this new program, but it's also when we talk about the current police that we have, they have to get out into the community more, interact with the people in them, and make the people in our community feel comfortable with them. There's not a lot of that happening right now. So when people do have to call 911, we want them to be able to want to do that and feel comfortable to do that. And I've talked with quite a few different people who just are not on that page. They're uncomfortable with police being involved. Why? That's not really something that we need to discuss. We just need to make them more comfortable with police. So yeah, we absolutely need to change the way that we police, and that will in turn save money if we do it in the way that I'm talking about.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the 4 of you. I was very glad to listen to you. You can't get my vote. I live in the county. I'm sorry. But I think we've all learned a lot about what these individual 4 candidates are thinking and are planning and are wanting to do for our city and their visions. I want to thank all 4 of you very, very much. Give them a round of applause. And now I want to thank our group here. Many of you are members in the Quincy Tea Party. Many of you are not. We'd encourage you to become a member. John is still sitting back there with his hand held up high. He'll take your money. We have monthly meetings where we bring information on issues and candidates like we did here. I already want to express an invitation to whoever are the winners of your primaries to come back in April and have a debate between the 2 of whoever that is. We'd look forward to that because we try to inform all our people at all times about what's out there. Thank you for being courteous. I didn't have to bring the big sister out at all. No, I am the big sister at home. I have 6 little siblings and my brothers are all taller than I am. So I am the big sister. I've been gone from home for 49 years and they still call me the big one. So there. Just not scaring anybody now. But anyway, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the questions that came from the group. And I wish you all a good night and drive home safely. Please rise so we can sing God Bless America. God bless America. Land the light with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Good night, everyone.